Thank you so much, Joanne, and everyone else. Let's begin with our session on everything about customers. So it is very important to make sure that you've set up everything right from the start. If you have made any mistakes, chances are your reporting is going to be wrong, or you are going to get constant errors, or you're viewing things that you really don't want to see. So with customers, the first thing you need to do is go into your setup. In this case, I've got two companies that I will be juggling in between. So the one company has got a whole lot of transactions into it, and then the one is fairly new. So I'll be going in and out of the out of the companies, so you can see how it looks on the reports after you've done your setups. So in this case, you go to your setup, and then you go into your customers control. This is the first thing you need to do. You need to make sure that everything is set up right. So in here, you start off with your configuration tab. So this is where you're making sure that whenever you process your transactions or your customers, everything is going to the correct account. So starting off here, we've got your customer control account, which is your 8,000 account. So in this account, you need to make sure that you've set it up right on your Edit General Ledger accounts. So each time you process a customer, the system updates this account. And when you view the detailed ledger of this account, you will see all the balances or total outstanding balance on all your customers. So this is where you get that value from this account. It has to be in this, it is set up here. Otherwise, if it's not there when you try and process, you might get a pop-up telling you that this account does not exist and you cannot proceed with your processing on your invoices. So very important, guys. The next account that needs to be set up is your cashback discount. So obviously this records discount when you process a receipt with discount on your customers. If you don't have this set up, you might find yourself with a pop-up message again when you try and enter your discount. Then next up, if you need to have interest charged on any values or on any outstanding amounts on your customers, this is where you set up your interest account. It's very important to make sure that it's there. Otherwise, when you try and run your report on your overdue interest account, then you get a message again. And when you set up your interest, Pastel allows you to set up the annual interest rate. So let's say on a monthly basis, you need to charge an interest of 2%, for example. You don't put 2% here. You multiply that by the number of periods that you have in your financial periods. If it's 12, then in here, you're going to enter 24. Okay, so obviously when you do your overdue interest account, it will calculate it monthly, but in here you enter the annual percentage. And then your minimum interest amount, this is the value that you wish to charge interest on, the minimum value that you wish to charge interest on. Obviously, if you need this to be set up to 50, let's say 50 Rand, for example, anything below that, your system will not charge interest on. But if you wish the system to charge interest on any value, small or big values, then you leave this as 0. So it will charge interest in any case, no matter what the value is. So very important on that one. And then let's come to your entry type. So I'm sure you've come up with situations where you're running your reports and perhaps you're seeing your tax invoices sitting in your purchases, which is wrong. So chances are the entry type set up in here is wrong. So perhaps someone could have changed that to purchases or points of sojourn or something. That's not right. So make sure your entry type is set to your customer journals. And then when you run your reports, you can actually see that your invoices are sitting in the right reports and where they're supposed to be. If not, then your first step is to check here whether the entry type is set up correctly. And then you have a checkbox here that says one overdue when invoicing. So sometimes you've got your customers that haven't paid you for a while, and your system actually calculates that based on your aging. If they are overdue, you may wish the system to tell you this, or when users are busy capturing you want them to see a message that's telling them, look, you're going to invoice this customer, but they are actually overdue. So you can choose whether to carry on invoicing them, or you can tell them, look, I'm not going to invoice, there's an amount overdue. Please pay that first before we can actually make up a new invoice. This is where you activate this setting, and this also allows your users at least to confirm with the supervisor if they can go ahead with invoicing certain customers. I hope you can all still see my screen. If not, then remember just to press F5. It could be that you've gone into sleep mode. And then we go on to your text on your document lines. So there's quite a few options here, but I must just mention that the most common option is the option to print text percentage on your lines. So while you're capturing an invoice, you select your text. Instead of showing the text amount, you are in effect saying, I need to see the text percentage. And that's it. That's the usual option here. The second option is where you prefer seeing the text amount instead of the text percentage. And then the last option on no text printing, this is used on a company where you don't use text at all. So you can take this option. But just bear in mind that if you are using text and then you tick the option to say no text printing, your invoice is going to look very funny and it's going to look very confusing. So make sure no text printing is only used on a company where there's no text processing at all. Okay, so hopefully that's clear enough. On your default text type for financial lines, this is the default text that will only affect lines that are not inventory items on your text invoice. So if you're using inventory lines, this option is not going to affect those lines. This option will only affect your lines that you enter for general ledger. So if it's general ledger or anything else that's not inventory, this is the text that will affect those lines. So you can change this text, but it's also important to note that this text will not be taking precedence over the text that you set up on your individual general ledger accounts. Okay, is that clear? The text that you set up here is not the one that takes precedence over the general ledger accounts, over the text that's in your general ledger account. So you can set this up. Remember, this is just the default. Okay. And then on your text reference prompt amount, so we've got countries where they prefer that if a customer purchases something from you and it exceeds a certain amount, then the tax authorities require you to provide the customer tax reference, their name, address, and all those details. So this is where you set up the tax amount that should trigger those details. So let's say you've invoiced for 10,000 Rand. You might not need the tax details, but if you've invoiced for something more than 100,000, then you might need the tax details. So in here, you might enter the value 100,000. That's when you need the trigger to come up telling you that you need tax details for this specific customer. So hopefully that's clear enough. And then you use the defined fields here in this block. This is just additional text fields for you. It's not something that you have to make use of, but should you need additional text fields, this is very useful on your user defined fields. So we can give an example of a school, for example. They might need additional details about the next of kin of a child, maybe who's going to pick up that child at the end of the day. This is just additional fields. They can use it for that. But obviously, this depends on the type of business that you've got, and you can set them up based on that. So that's all under the configuration tab. We go on to the statements tab. This controls how your statements will view. If you set it up differently, or if you exclude certain things, you might see that your statement has got things that are missing from there. So first things first, you set up your paper style in here. So normally, most people would prefer printing their statements on an A4 paper. If that's the case, then when you go into this assistant, make sure you just have plain selected, single sheet selected, and that's it. That will be your default paper. And then the block below that will show you what type of paper your statement is going to print on. If you've got any other type of paper, your pre-printed, header pre-printed paper, then you set it up as such in the paper style assistant. When you go into your minimum statement amount, it's always advisable to set this up as 0. If, for example, you put in here 50, and then you've got customers where the statement value is 30 Rand, for example, when you run your statement reports for all your customers, those customers will not be included in that report because you've set your minimum statement amount to 50. So if you need to see everything on your customers, every customer that you've got, and you want to see their statement, rather set this to 0, and then you won't have situations where you're running your statements for all your customers and there's certain customers that are missing. So always check this as well. And then aging totals to print. Generally, you've got 5. You can't exceed 5. So aging totals is when you're running your statement. I'm just going to go into a company where I've got transactions. If you run a report if you run your statement for a specific customer, let me just see if I can get one here. It's easier to understand it if you can see how it looks like. So on the statement, you can see I've got aging totals at the bottom. So it's current, 30, 60, 90, or 120 days. So that setting is actually saying, I want to print my aging totals from 0 to 5. So you want to see all the aging totals here. If you go back to that setting, if you change that to 4, and then when you go view your report here, you probably won't see the 120 days. You only see up to 90 days because you've changed the aging totals that you need to see on your statement. So if you need to see everything on your aging, keep that at 5. But should you want something a little bit different, depending on maybe requests from your customers, you can change that number from any number below 5, but you can't go beyond that. It's only 5. That's the maximum. The number of copies to print, that's straightforward. How many number of copies you need to print for each customer statement. You can change that here. Maybe you need a copy for yourself and a copy for your customer, then you can change it here. And then we've got the option, always print in balance forward format. So we're going to come to a point where we'll explain the difference between open item and balance forward. But this option, what it does is it shows your opening balance at the start of the period when you run a statement. So let's say you're running for May. You're running a statement for May. It will say opening balance for May. It will give you that at the top, and then transactions for that period only. If you do not select this option, you will get everything on that specific customer account. So this option is merely giving you things that you need for that specific period running in a sequence. If you don't take this option, that's where you find the option most statements where people will say, well, you've given me a statement, but I can see transactions from 2018, 2019. All I want to see is for May 2021. So it's because of this option. So if you tick this option, then you only get the statement for that specific period that you've selected with the opening balance included. So I think it's a very cool setting because it avoids your statement looking all funny. So try use this setting if you haven't tried it, and then you might even like how your statements view after that. And then under your invoices, you've got the option print invoice totals on statements or print invoice lines on statement. Invoice totals on statement is just that when you print your statement, you don't want to see anything else, just the total of the invoice that was done. So if you did 5 invoices in May, you only see 5 totals on the statement with the invoice numbers. But if you did the second option where it says print invoice lines, if you did 5 invoices with 20 lines each, you are going to get a very long statement because it's detailing each and every line that was done on a specific invoice. The second option, this is what it's going to give you. So I mean, I don't know of any customers who wish to see detailed lines, but if they are, well, there's the option. The option is there for you. Otherwise, print invoice totals is the most common option. And then we come to statement messages. So when the system prints statements, it shows the aged balance. You remember if you go back to the screen, this is just a demo customer. So it shows you, it prints your age balances at the bottom. But just below the age balances, you see there's a message at the bottom there. That's where you set up that message in here on your statement messages. You can include a message on the statement if you wish to do so. Different messages, you can customize them here depending on what you want to see on the statement, what kind of a message you want to see on the statement. So for each aging term, you can only use up to 3 lines and a maximum of 30 characters on each line. So 30 characters on each line and 3 lines for each term. So this is where you can play around with the messages. Otherwise, if you're not really fussy about the messages that show on your statement, then you can just leave it as is now, and it will just default to that. So that's everything on your statements tab. We now go to your defaults tab. This tab controls how you create your customers in your edit customer account. So when you create a customer for the very first time, what are the default settings that should pull through on that customer account? This is where you do this. So we start off with your normal payment terms. So you've got 2 options, your monthly terms and day-based terms. So under your monthly terms, once again, you can select whether you want your customer to be on current, 30, 60, 90, or 120 days, and then that's your monthly terms. Otherwise, the other option is day-based terms. So day-based terms, this allows you to select how long from the date of invoice should a customer pay you. So in here, you can see I've already created my own terms for the day-based customers. But if you go on to modify, you can actually customize your own terms for this day-based accounts. So say, for example, from the date of invoice, you only need 10 days. They should be paying you within those 10 days. So in here, you just enter your 10, which is the number of days, and then you can choose whether you want this to be from the date of invoice or from the last day of a period. Most common one is from the date of invoice, and you use this option mostly with your very liquid transactions. Transactions are coming in at a very high paced level. So you can use this term. So if you click on OK, now you've got a third term there. So you can select this based on the requirements of your company, and you can play around with the number of days as well. So once you select it there, you then select a default term for that type of a payment. Okay. And then it will show it in that block as well. Under your other terms, this is where you set up your price list. On Pastel Partner, you can set up to 10 price lists, and then on Pastel Express, it's only up to 3, if I'm not mistaken. And then your interest, you can then also select whether you want your interest, when you want your interest to start charging from. You do this in here as well. Remember, this will only be effective if you've set up an interest percentage. Remember, on your configuration tab, we had an interest percentage there. If you haven't set this up, then under your default, your interest from option will not really apply to anything because you haven't activated anything on your interest percentage. And then your credit limit, it's straightforward. You can set it up here. This is where you put in the minimum amount. And then your invoiced discount percentage as well. You can put it there. That's what the discount should default to when you're processing your tax invoices. And then early payment terms, once again, you can set it up. The concept is exactly the same as when you set up your day-based terms. So you go in there, you create a percentage, and then you select from how many days this should then apply. And then we're going to go through this very quickly because this is just the default. Most of the things you'll see them when you go into your edit customer account screen. And then you've got your printing options. It's straightforward. You are either choosing to print the document, email it, or print and email. So you can choose what you need to do here. And then under your statement messages as well, you can choose how you want it to print from oldest terms or from the first term going forward. So you can play around with those two options to see how it then views on your statement. And then on your processing method, we've got open item and balance forward. So with balance forward, you can't use day-based terms with balance forward, just so you know this. As long as you want to use day-based terms, you cannot use a processing method that says balance forward. Okay. So when you create your customers, you find that you've got the option to whether you need to create your customer as open item or balance forward. Open item is when you specify that you need to match every invoice to a receipt. So whenever you do an invoice, once it's paid up, you're going to match it to that. Whereas with balance forward, you don't have that kind of a setup. So hopefully you understand the concept here. But as we go through our reporting as well, you see when these two options really come into play. And then the text entry method, exclusive or inclusive, you can play around with those depending on what you want to see when you're capturing. And then on your categories, you can create categories. I'll show you how to as well. And then you've got your shipment or delivery method at the bottom. These are just defaults, guys. When you actually create your customer account and you don't want to see any of the defaults that you've set up in the screen, you can still change it. So it's not a hard and fast rule that you must only always use the settings in here. This is just defaults. And then on your descriptions, this is just descriptions that you see on your postal addresses or delivery addresses. How do you want to view it when you create your customer account, or what should be the description that you see? This is where you set it up. You can play around with the descriptions in there to see how they view. And then we go on to the rounding tab. So in here, first things first, if you're not going to be using rounding at all and you don't need it, make sure you set up to none. And then you see that everything else is deactivated because you don't want anything to do with rounding. Should you wish to use rounding, let's say round normal, for example, you need to create a rounding account. Usually the standard rounding account is the 9999 account, and it's an income statement account with an other income financial category. That's usually the standard rounding account. So on your rounding options, you have three options there: round normal, round up, and round down. It's very straightforward. Round normal will be the option to round to the nearest value. And when you do your values, when you do your rounding values, you can only enter a value from 1 to 100. And these values are in cents. It's only from 1 to 100. And just remember, this is in cents. And then you also have the option round up, obviously to round up to the nearest value, round down to the lower value. So that's your settings there on rounding. Straightforward. Just remember, if you don't need rounding, keep it on none. Don't try and click on round normal and then put it 0, and that's going to confuse you. Just keep it on none, and then you know you're not using rounding at all. So that's it on your customer setup. This is very important, guys. Make sure you understand every other setting that you're doing in there. Okay. So we're going to move very quickly on to the next option that you need to set up is your customer documents. So set up customer and you go onto your documents. So in here, it's very important to remember that these settings are per user. The settings are per user. So don't make changes for user one, for example, and then expect the same changes to apply to all the other 10 users. No, if you make the changes for user one, you then need to click on the drop down arrow at the top where it says user and select the next user and go on like that, making changes for each user. So in here, you've got your different documents. So for your quotations, sales orders, you will find that there are certain options that are grayed out, and reason being that you obviously cannot update your quotations or your sales orders. So some options are not available for quotations and sales orders. You'll find that on my documents, I've got a receipts option or receipts tab at the end. This is simply because I've got the additional module called receipting module and it's activated on my account. That's why you're seeing it here. If you don't have that module, you won't see that tab. So very important to note. So we won't be going through on the receipting module. So we'll leave out this tab. This is a topic for another day. But just in case you're wondering, why do I have an extra tab there? That's the reason. So if you go back to the very first document, your quotation, you can change the original name and the copy name in here, as well as the supporting document name. You'll find that entry type is deactivated because it's a document that we cannot update. And you've got two checkboxes at the bottom, force projects and force sales codes. If you really use projects heavily, then you need to make sure that force projects is selected, or this is just to make sure that each time a user is capturing your documents, they don't leave out the project. Otherwise, your reporting is going to look very much out of order when you run your project report. So make sure you tick that option if you need users to make sure that they enter one. And then on your force sales codes, if you've got sales reps in your company, and they are capturing invoices, you might need to be able to enter a salesperson so that you can be able to charge commission on them and see how many invoices were done for a specific salesperson. You'll see more of this when we actually go into the edit customer screen. And then on the message, you can choose to enter a message at the bottom of your quotation. Usually most people use this space for entering banking details. Or any other message, but the most common option is entering banking details there if you've got if there is enough space for that. And then on your right hand side here, it's just the printing options. It's very straightforward. Number of copies you need to print, the next number you need to use on the next quotation when a user is capturing, and then what your invoice lines should default to when you open a quotation. In this case, it's going to be your item code, but if you click on the drop down arrow, you can select a whole lot of other options. And then what to print. Do you want to print the quotation only, or the picking slip and the quotation, or you don't want to print anything at all? Those are your options. Once again, you can also set your paper style in that screen. Okay, so if you go into your sales order, everything else is exactly the same as what you saw on the quotation. The only difference is you've got an additional checkbox here where it says print serial numbers. So this will be active if you are using the serial number tracking module. That's also an additional module that you can purchase should you wish to use it. But again, that's a topic for another day. But just so you know, that's why we've got the additional checkbox here, and everything else on the right stays the same. Once again, remember the settings you make are user specific. If you need those to apply for all the users, then do it as such. Select each user, make changes, select the next user and make the changes. So the important tab in the screen is the Invoice tab. On your left side, it's just changing your document name. Should you not want to see the name text invoice and you want maybe just invoice, you can edit that, take that out and put it in. Or if you want more than just the word text invoice, you can do that as well in here. You can edit and play around with it. And you can also set up an entry type for your invoices. So make sure it's the correct entry type. Otherwise, you'll be stuck with the same situation again where someone has changed that to currency variance, for example, as the entry type. You run your report for your sales entry type and you can't see your invoices simply because the entry type that has been set up under the invoice for a specific user is different from everyone else. So make sure the entry type there says it's a sales entry type. And then once again, you've got your three options: your costing project sales code or print serial numbers. Use your messages box as you want. You can put in anything there. Your printing options here at the bottom, you can play around with those as well. What I need you to pay attention to is the first two options on your right here, just after the user. You've got the option to update a document as soon as you complete it, or update in batch mode. So update on completion of document is as soon as you're done with the invoice, when you click on next document, it's already updated. It's not going to be stuck there for another time. It's updated instantly. And then update in batch mode is when you're doing your invoices, you keep them there maybe up to the end of the month, and then you update them at once. You update them then, because then you're sure everything is done correctly. The only thing I'll make you aware of in this option is users can actually go back to those documents that are sitting in a batch, edit the lines there, and take out what was on the original document. So you end up with a situation where the document that was printed originally and the document that was updated later have got different values or even different lines. So it's very important, or you should be very wary when you use this option. But otherwise, if that's a requirement for your company, you only update at the end of the month, then yes, by all means, you can choose that option. Just be wary of how the users use this option as well. And then you've got the checkbox to allow on hold. You can put your document on hold for a while until maybe you've got confirmation of what should be processed on the document. So that option is also available here. If we go into the credit note, the only difference in the credit note tab is the entry type. So make sure again you've got the correct entry type set up for your credit notes. Otherwise, transactions will be sitting in the incorrect place. And then your debit note as well, entry type. Otherwise, every other setting is exactly the same. Okay, so that's it on setting up your customer documents. I hope everyone is still here and you can still see my screen. And we are going to move on to when you create your customer. So I'm not going to go through how you create a customer account. I'm sure you're familiar on how to do so. If not, once again, we've got our links, our knowledge base links, our Sage City. You can go through there just to see how to create a customer. But again, if you go into your processing options, I just need you to see the processing method. Yes. So remember we spoke about creating a customer as an open item or balance forward. So because our default is set to open item as the processing method, immediately when I try and create a new customer, that will be the default in there, the open item option. And then the other thing I need you to take note of, oh yes, on your currency, if you are using the multi-currency module, instead of seeing just home currency here, you will see a whole list of other currencies that you are processing to as well. So home currency will be the default if you don't have the module. But otherwise, if you do, then you have that option. And then at the bottom here, you've got an option which says EU country. This is only valid if you are in the European Union. Then you can change the country there to any country in the European Union. And on your code as well, you then select that country as well. Otherwise, all the defaults is mostly what we have spoken about. Maybe you can also take note of how you can tick this option where it says customer accepts electronic document. If they need you to email their statement, then you need to make sure that you tick this option. And then below that, you enter your email address where the system should email the document. This email as well as the email that you set up on the details tab. This is very important if you're going to be emailing your customers. Okay. Other than that, on your customers, there isn't nothing much that I'll say is quite difficult. It's pretty straightforward. Oh yes, and at the top, if you are using point of sale, right at the top where it says cash sale account. So it's not all the time that you need customer details if your clients are just walking in to buy bread. I mean, you don't want their details if they're coming in just to buy bread or milk, whatever the case. You don't want their address and all of that. So if it's just a cash sale account, you tick it as such, and then that's it. They just walk in clients, and chances are you won't see them again, or hopefully they do come back again. And then the option to block, where it says blocked, if, for example, a customer hasn't paid you or it's actually a bad debt and you don't want to process to that customer account anymore, then you take the option to block it so that users, when they try to select that customer account on the invoice, it pops up a message that says this customer account is blocked. You can't process to that specific customer account. So that's it. And then your sales code at the bottom as well. This is where you set up a default salesperson for a specific account. So if it's like a monthly customer account and you know there's a specific salesperson who deals with that customer, then you can set up a default salesperson here. And obviously that's the one that will pull through on your reports as well. So that's it on creating your customer accounts. Let me just save that. I'm not sure if I changed things there. And then in your edit as well, while we're still under customers, you can create your categories. You can create up to 99 categories. So this is when you need to make sure. So for example, if it's a school, you might need 2 different categories, the lower grade and the higher grade, whatever the case may be. And this also helps with your reporting, and because you can then run your report based on a specific category. So that's it on the category. And still under your edit customers, you can then create your salespersons. You create a code, salesperson, and then on the commission tab, you choose whether you want to pay your commission based on the gross profit or based on the actual sales. So when you create your commission structure, you have the option to choose what percentage of commission should be charged based on what value. So in this case, I've already done this so that we can save ourselves some bit of time. If, for example, any sales between 100 Rand and 199, you're going to charge 1% commission. Anything above that, as it goes higher, you increase the percentage as well. So this is just a commission structure. So maybe you might even say anything below 100 Rand, there's no percentage that will be charged because we said our commission structure starts from 100 Rand. So it's pretty straightforward. And there's a very nice feature as well at the bottom where it says copy commission structure. So if this structure is going to be applying to another salesperson who will get the same commission, then you just copy that. And then when you create a new salesperson, let's just see if I haven't used that code. Let's say sales rep number 56. And instead of us going through the whole process of entering the commission structure, you just paste that. And then it has just copied from another user. Everything is there. You just save the changes in there. So I think that's a very cool feature. And then those other tabs are just giving you totals for your commission, this year totals, your last year totals, and you can even create notes and you can insert a picture for your salesperson as well. And once again, you can block the salesperson if maybe they're no longer in the company or whatever the case may be. So that's it on your sales reps. The last option is customer prices. I feel like this is a topic for another day as well because it's very detailed, but this option is merely helping you see that you can create prices other than the 10 price list that we spoke about earlier. This is where you can actually create those prices. So other than the 10 prices, you can make specific prices per customer even per inventory item in the screen. So it's an assistant. There's quite a few options that you can go through to set those up. And the other thing that it can also help you do is a discount structure based on the item-based prices per customer, per category, or even by inventory group. So I'm not going to go much into detail on this because it's quite detailed, but should you wish to just play around with it, once again, go onto our knowledge base and you can just play around with it. Maybe hopefully someday we can do a topic just on customer prices. Okay, so that's it on your setups. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. If you feel that there's something that you need more explanation on the setups, once again, put it on the question box and we'll get to that later. But at the moment, we're now going on to our customer reporting. So if you go into your view, customers, the very first option that you've got is your print document option. So under your print document, you have the options to print your text invoices, credit notes, debit notes, and receipts. Once again, I've got the option that says receipts there because I've got that as an additional module. Otherwise, you might not have that option on your side as well. So if you go print document and your text invoice, what I could say about printing text invoices, what is very important in the screen is making sure that you've got your filters correct. How many times have you gone into printing a text invoice and then once you select something, it says there are no documents specified in the range? So that's basically because the filters that you've selected, it's either the account that you've entered in there hasn't been any processing in there, or if you've entered a document number there, there we go, I don't have any documents. If you've entered a document in there, the document doesn't exist, or you've missed a number on the document number, so it will give you an error. But the most common problem is the date range. So you might use a date range that that is beyond, or should I say a date range that is too close, and yet your invoice was done way back in previous years. So I always prefer, if I'm using a specific, if I'm searching for a specific document, I would rather use a date going back as far as 1980. I know that's quite far back, but at least I won't get that pop-up message. I always really get annoyed when I get that pop-up message because now I have to go back into the filters and then try and figure out what did I do wrong. Okay, so just make sure your date filters are always correct, especially if you enter a document number here. But other than that, the printing of documents is pretty straightforward. I don't think that will be much of a problem. And then besides printing documents, if you go into your view customers, the next option that you've got is your analyze sales report. So under your analyze sales, you can either analyze your sales based on journals, items, customers, and sales codes. So sales journal, firstly on your sales journal. The filters, once again, I cannot stress this enough. This is very important. As you can see, mine always defaults to 1980, and I suppose yours will do the same as well. And then the end date, just make sure, currently we're in 2020, so we need to 2021. Oh, I'm stuck in 2020. We're in 2021, so make sure that your date filters goes up to the current period at least. You can go ahead in future as well, just in case you've done out of period processing. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the out of period processing problem. So date filters, very important. So when you view your sales journal report, you can choose whether you want to view the invoices only, or if you don't select the option that says invoices only, you are going to get invoices, credit notes, and debit notes in your sales journal report. So this is a very good report because it shows you most of your sales, but sales that were only done through the process customer text invoice screen. Any other sales that were done elsewhere, maybe if you went into your process journals, if you went anywhere else that's not in your process text invoice screen, you won't see the transactions in this report. It's only the text invoices screen, and those are the transactions you will see. You can specify a document start range, but otherwise, if not, just stick to your date filter range, and then you can choose whether you want to show the details, you print the descriptions or not, or the last option, a new page per account. So if you've got 10,000 customers, all right, when you run this report, it's going to create a separate page for each customer depending on how many transactions you've got. I wouldn't tick this option if I've got plenty of customers. Rather leave that unselected, and then you can run your report. Let's see if I've got anything here. Oh, this is a blank company. Let me just go to a valid company so we can actually see how the reports would view. Analyze sales, sales journal, date filters are correct. And if we run that report, hopefully I don't have a lot. Okay, but based on the filters that I've selected, you can see this is how the report will then view. You will see that if you go back into your rerun option and select the option to show details, then it's much more detailed. You get more details on the report based on the filters that you've selected. Less filters means less detail on your report. If you go back into that report as well, then you take the option to print descriptions. It's going to be even more detailed. Okay, so once again, your filters determine what you are going to see. We go back into our reporting, customers, analyze sales, and then we've got sales by item. These reports are more or less the same. It's just the difference is you're saying, I want to view this report based on customers or inventory or category, whatever the case may be. So sales by item report, you'll see mine says I've got a full filter for stores. I've got the multi-stores module as an additional module activated on my account. That's why you see the option where it says from what store to what store. If you don't have the multi-stores module, then you will not get that option. You won't see it on your side. If you are following through as well, you might not get that option. But with this report, you can choose whether you want to view the report based on the inventory category, the item, customer, or inventory group. But what's important for this report is your code start. So if I'm going to be selecting inventory category as my sequence, make sure that you select all the inventory categories that you have on the drop-down list. Start where it says code start, make sure it's the very first inventory category. Most people would skip the one that says none and start from the one that has an actual valid code, for example, 001. When you then run the report, if you have inventory items that are set to a category that says none, they will not be included in this report because you've actually skipped that category. So make sure you use the very first category on the list, and then on your category end, you use the very last category on your list. And then your date range, again, this report is date driven, so it's not like a specific period, just a date driven report. You can then select your dates, and you have the option to show gross profit or not show the gross profit. Should you wish to show your gross profit, then your report is either going to be ran based on average cost or last cost. So if you tick last cost, it's going to use last cost. If you don't tick last cost, then it's going to be using average cost. So you might find people saying, okay, why is my report not showing the correct percentage? It's possibly because of that option. Make sure that you're using the last cost, or if not, then it's going to be using average cost because Pastel is always working on average cost. And then the last options, show details, show inventory totals. That's very straightforward. You can play around with those depending on what you want to see on your report. So if we run that report, just you can see the fill of the report. There we've got the report, your gross profit amount and percentage. You will find that if there are items that were on the none category, that's the first one that you see on the list there. Once again, the detail that you see on the report depends on what you have selected on your filters. If you don't like what you see, or if you feel that something is wrong, don't be scared to go onto your rerun option and play around with those options, guys. It's very easy to learn how to get a specific type of a report if you just play around with the filters. You'll be surprised at how much detail you can get just by viewing or playing around with the extra options that you have on your report filters. Okay, so that's it on the report. Guys, with the next reports, I'm going to go through them very quickly because we still have to get to some of the problems that you might get on your customer reports. And then sales by customer report. It's straightforward again, but this is just driven by customer codes. You can select whether you want to view sales based on your customers, select their customers based on what you want to see. Otherwise, if you want to see the report for all your customers, where it says code start, make sure you leave that blank. And then when you tab to the next line, it will put in the Z code, which just means it's going to run the report for all your accounts. The same thing can be done with your document start and end. Leave it blank and the Z code will be entered onto your document end for it to pull through everything on your documents. Okay, so when you run that report, it will then give you the sales based on your customers. I'm not going to open this report just so we can save some time. I see we are going to run out of time. Then analyze sales by sales code. Remember, we were speaking about how you can create sales reps on Pastel. So this is a very cool report because then you can run a report based on those sales reps. You can run it for a specific sales rep or for all your sales reps. And this is also data driven. And once again, those filters, you can play around with those filters. Okay, so that's my sales rep report, and this is just an overview of it. Then on your customers, the next report we're going to is your detailed ledger. So your customer detailed ledger report can be viewed by customer or by entry type. So by customer, you are merely going to select a range of customers where you want to view the detailed ledger for. And this report is period driven. So it's not for a specific date, just period driven. And you can view this report for the current year or for the previous year. For the previous year, make sure you just deselect this year and then you have your previous year periods. You can also choose on this report to view each period separate. So instead of just viewing one big report with all the periods mixed up in there, you can then view the report for each period separately. If you are using the multi-currency module that I spoke about earlier, then this option to use foreign currency will be active. Then you can actually view a detailed ledger in the currency that the customer was processed in. So that's a very good option there as well. It will compare your home currency and your foreign currency values. And then you've got your blocked and unblocked option. Remember, we spoke about how you can block your customer accounts if they haven't paid you or they're now bad debts. So you can choose to view the detailed ledger, including the blocked accounts or only the ones that are unblocked, or you can view for both the accounts. For the sake of time, I'm not going to view that report, but important thing to note here is, once again, this report is period driven. So play around with the filters. You'll be surprised at what you might get out of there. So
Hi, Nancy. Sorry, if you can hear me, it seems like we're having a sound problem. Could you maybe just mute and unmute yourself? Sorry about that.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, you're back now. Sorry about that. It
Oh,
seems enough
perfect.
to you, including myself.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad you got, and I'm not quite sure when you lost me, guys. I think the last report I was talking about now was the outstanding codes report. So hopefully you heard all the other reports I was talking about. Sorry about that, guys. I'm not sure what could have happened. So I was
No
talking
problem.
about the outstanding quotations and back orders report. So you can choose to view the report based on quotations only or your sales orders. And you can also view the report based on document numbers. Okay, this is pretty straightforward. I won't delve much into this report, but when you run it, you can see what's outstanding for those specific documents. And then when you go into your customer, view customers, and then the next report is your balances. So this is like a balance of your customers, just the balance only and nothing much on this report. So you can also choose to view totals. If not totals, then you get more detail on the customer balances report. Once again, you can select a range of accounts, or you can select the whole batch of accounts that you need to view this report for. Okay, the filters are also very straightforward. Hopefully it's not going to be difficult for you to run that report and understand what you can get out of it. Then we go on to your customers' monthly periodic reports. So you've got your statements and a whole lot of other reports. The last few reports on this screen, I won't go much into it. Your label printing, your letter printing and printing from Microsoft Word and such. I also feel this is a topic for another day, which we can actually go through. So the last four on that list, I won't go through, so we can get through more of the troubleshooting on reports. Okay, so monthly periodic statements. So this is just your statement in general, but the most common problem when you run your statements is not being able to see details that you expect. Once again, the most common problem is the fact that when you run your category filters, if you're running your statement, there's an option to run your categories. If you have not selected the category that says none, and you've got customers that are sitting in that category, when you run the statement, you will not see them because you've excluded that first category. So again, make sure category start and category end, it's always the very first one and the very last one to make sure that everything is included. Unless, of course, if you are only looking for a specific category, then you can choose the one that you require in there. Okay, and then this is period-based reports, and the other option you need to be wary of, your print from terms option. You will find users where they tick the option that says second aging period onwards. If you do that, any customers that are sitting in the first aging period will not show on the report because your print from terms is set as such. Make sure you select the very first one so that you get everything on there. And then your balance range, make sure it says both as well. If it says debit only, you might miss quite a few transactions or even customer statements just because you didn't select the option that says both. Okay, and then your statement date, what date you want it to show when you run your statement. This is where you select the date. And other than that, everything else is pretty self-explanatory. And then if you're going to view customers And under monthly periodic, the next report is your age analysis report. Okay, so age analysis is giving you just an overview based on the aging periods. What is important in this filters is just the payment terms, where it says payment terms. Make sure that is set up is every customer aged monthly. Um, the ones with the day-based customers, I wouldn't advise you to use just that option because it might exclude certain accounts as well. So always use the one that says age monthly. It should include everything else, including your day-based accounts as well. And the other option, which is important here, is your print from terms. Once again, current onwards should be the very first option that you select. If you choose otherwise, you find that the report is not going to be that detailed. And then the details, you can choose whether you want to see something that's very detailed or just a basic report. So if you select none, I'm just going to run this report real quick. If you select none, you see that you're only getting balances on your account and values. Other than that, it's not very detailed. But if you go back and then you select the option where it says full details, then you're going to get everything that you need on your aging for that specific account or accounts. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And then if you go into your view customers, we go into monthly periodic, your tax age analysis report. This is exactly the same as age analysis report, and the filters are mostly the same. The only difference is that this is only giving you an aging based on text. So it's purely text based. And then your overdue customers report. So remember when we spoke about how you set up um, your customers and overdue dates and interest, this report is where this then comes into play. So you can choose to run this report based on the payment terms. So in this case, every customer according to the payment terms. You can use this report as well based on your day-based customer accounts, but mostly it's not a common report. Users prefer running your customer statement, detailed ledger, and age analysis. But other than that, just to see what is overdue, you hardly get clients who run this report. But if you do, then again, play around with the filters to see how much you can get out of the report. And then the rest of the reports that are left on the screen, your invoices due, it's exactly like it says there. It's invoices due. And this report is date driven, so you don't have to run it for a specific period. You can choose a date range, maybe from the 1st of July up to the 23rd of July, and then that's all you want to see for that report. And then in this report, you can actually include balance forward accounts, meaning most of the accounts that you would see in here, if you don't tick that option, is the open item. Remember the difference again between open item and balance forward. And then you can choose to show details for this report again. Sorry guys that I'm really going through this really quick because I know we're out of time and we still haven't even managed to get to the problems that we might get when you're running your customer report. Then the next one is your open item history report. Just as it is, you can see what is matched, what is not matched, or you can see both. When you run this report, you can choose to see what's still sitting in an open batch, and then you can see how you can still match it, or whether you want to see only what has been matched in that open batch. Otherwise, if you don't want to see posted or anything that's in an open batch, you then choose to view the report for everything, whether it has been posted or whether it's still in an open batch. And this report only includes the receipt credit notes and debit notes, because remember, these are customer reports and those are the transactions that you can actually update on your customers. And this report again is period driven. So I just want to run this report so you can see the look and the feel of the report. So once again, it will look very empty if your filters and you haven't selected your filters to see much detail on it. Otherwise, if you select to view a whole lot more detail, then you can do so on your filters. You can also choose to view the previous year or the current year, depending on what you require. Okay, so that's it for the open item history report. Just want to see if there's any other report in the customers that we can talk about. We did speak about the balances report, customers, monthly periodic. So under monthly periodic, the last four I won't go through because it's how you print letters, labels, and printing to Word, and it's really a topic for another day. But the other report you can view there is your your sales analysis code report. So this allows you to then view report based on the commission structure of your sales rep. Depending on how you created it, this report gives you that. Okay, so you can choose to view it per period for the whole year or whatever the case may be. Other than that, reports on your sales analysis codes are very straightforward, and it's not much information besides you wanting to see how much sales were made and how much commission are you going to pay to those sales reps. Okay, so that's it on your sales reps, and then you can also get a list of all your sales reps codes. That's a report there. Then on your listings report, it's going to give you everything on your customer master file. So you can choose to view your list of accounts, your list of delivery addresses, or even your categories. It's straightforward as well for me, but if you do have questions on how you run your listing report, then again, please put it through in our chat box. We'll get to the questions later. The most common problem I've had on this customer listing report is that I'm not seeing all my customers on the report, and it's either one of the two options here. Category, you could have missed a category, or you have selected to view only blocked customers, or you want to view unblocked customers only. So if you wish to see everything, make sure it says both on that option, then you get to view the report for all your accounts. But other than that, it's just an overview report of your customer master file. So that's it on the reports that we've got on your customers. So I'm just going to address two common issues on our reporting. The first one being that if I go and view my customer age analysis, it doesn't balance to what's on my detailed ledger. So the balance in your age analysis under your monthly periodic age analysis. So let's say you run it for a specific customer. Let's just pick one here so we can make a live example of what we are actually talking about. So I'm just going through my filters so that we only get a partial view of it. We don't want to view a whole lot of pages. So when you view your customer age analysis, so the balance that you have at the bottom there, you might get someone saying, okay, so the balance I have here is not corresponding to what I have on my customer detailed ledger. So the first things first, you need to check your filters on both reports. So in this case, chances are you might have selected the period of June here, and then when you go and view your customer detailed ledger, you've selected May, and you might have missed that, okay? Otherwise, that could cause a problem or a difference between the reports because you're not selecting the same period that you have on your age analysis and your customer detailed ledger. So make sure your filters, your report filters are correct, and you're selecting the correct accounts, and you're selecting the correct dates as well. That's the first thing. If all of that is correct, the next thing you will do is check if the customer is open item or balance forward. Because remember, with open item, you can always match your payment and your invoices, your receipts and your invoices. But with balance forward, it's a little bit different. And age analysis on balance forward customer accounts does not work in exactly the same way as the age analysis on your open item customer account. It's completely different. With open item customers, every payment and receipt is matched to the invoice, whereas with balance forward, you don't have that kind of a matching system. So the aging on those two processing methods is completely different. Okay, so that could be one of the reasons why your customer age analysis doesn't tie up with your detailed ledger. Okay, and then the next thing you can also check is for any open item corruption. So open item corruption can be checked by running the data integrity. You would first of all make a backup. Remember that anything that you do in the data integrity before you actually proceed with that process, you need to make sure that you've done a backup of your data before you run the data integrity. Once the backup is done, you can then go into your data integrity and then make sure that you verify the data only to check if there's any open item corruption. Because if you've got open item corruption, then that means your customer detailed ledger will not balance to your age analysis. If you run the report, if there are errors, obviously this report will tell you that there are errors. If you click on OK, it will give you the report showing you where the open item corruption is, and it will give you a customer account with the problem as well. So that's the nice thing about the data integrity. It gives you the account with the problem. In my case, it says there's no error, so it's not going to pop up any report. But should you have any errors, a report will be populated. So immediately when you see that you've got open item corruption, then you need to send through your data to support, and they will do a data fix for you to fix that problem with your open item corruption. Okay, so once you run that, at least you know where the problem is. You can also check for open item difference. Open item difference can be seen if you go into your customer monthly periodic and age analysis report. So on this report, the only option that will allow you to see if there's any open item corruption is the option towards the bottom there that says print transactions. So make sure your print transactions checkbox has been selected, and your details, you can choose whether you want to view full details, but because you only want to check for open item corruption, your details, you can leave those on none. But all your other filters have to be correct, because you are checking for some sort of corruption on your customers. So print transactions is important to be selected for you to be able to pick it up. So when you run the report, where you will find the open item corruption, I don't think I've got any customer account that has an OI, or rather open item corruption. But if you do have one, so when you run your age analysis, just before the totals of a specific account, the very last line that you will see there will have a description that says OI/diff, or rather O/I diff. As soon as you see that, then you know you've got open item corruption on that customer account. So if you were running the age analysis for all your customer accounts and you're scrolling through them and you come across a line that says OIDIF on a specific customer account, then that means there's open item corruption. And once again, you will need to send it through your data to support so they can do a data fix to resolve that issue. That can cause your age analysis and your detailed ledger not to tally up. Okay. And then the other thing as well that you need to check if your age analysis and detailed ledger are not tallying up is just making sure if you've matched all your transactions. So if you go into your process, match open item screen, and then you select the customer in question, the one customer where you're running, and you see that it's not tallying up to the detailed ledger, then you can check if everything has been matched. If you go into that screen and you have something where it says unallocated and there is a value there, Then click on the plus sign to see an extension of everything that has not yet been allocated to an invoice. It could be a receipt or whatever the case may be, or a credit note. Then you need to click on it and then allocate it to an invoice that is showing in the list. It has to be a valid invoice and the correct invoice that the transaction should be matched to. So that's very important. So hopefully you've got all of that. If your customer age analysis and detailed ledger are not balancing, make sure your filters are correct on the customer detailed ledger and your age analysis. Check if the customer is open item or balance forward, because balance forward doesn't show aging in the same way as open item. Then check if your receipts have been matched to your invoices. Run your data integrity to check for any corruption, and also run your age analysis to check for that line that says OIDIF. The same concept applies if you've got a problem with your statement and your detailed ledger. If your statement is not balancing to your detailed ledger as well, it's exactly the same troubleshooting steps. Check your report filters, check for OIDIF, check for incorrect matching, run your data integrity, all those things. Then you can pick up where the difference is coming from. Most of the times it's an open item corruption, or you haven't matched. It's either one of those two. But when you do your troubleshooting, make sure you go through all those steps to make sure that you pick up where the problem is. So that's the reports. Those are the common problems that we get on your customer reports. Other than that, I was going to show you how you do your matching. I think I've just done it now while we were going through the troubleshooting steps. You go into your process match open item. Anything that's unallocated will need to be allocated to an invoice. That's if there is an invoice to match it to, or if it has to be allocated, right? So make sure everything has been allocated in the screen. This is also part of the troubleshooting steps. That was the overview on customer reporting. So I hope that was informative. I know Joanne will have quite a few things she'll need to add on to what we were just talking about, but overall, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you got enough out of the customer reporting. I know there's quite a few reports that we didn't go into much detail on, but if there is something that you needed us to delve into, then feel free to send us a chat or a question there. We will answer it as we go. I know we're over time. Most people could have dropped out because they had other appointments, but thank you so much, guys. I hope this was informative enough. Thank you so much. I'll put you back through to Joanne.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That was great. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly swap the screens around again. Just give me a second. And hopefully you can all see my screen, which should be either showing you the slideshow, or if you look now, I'm really hoping that it's showing you Sage City. So Nancy, thank you so much for that. So guys, I've answered most of your questions. A quick question did just come up with, how do you allocate values that have been done for a previous year that you can't match? In this instance, you would need to convert back to balance forward and then convert back to open item. So if you cannot match them from the open items or from the match open item screen, then you need to run the conversion. And guys, if you look in the question option, you'll see someone asked, what if something's balanced forward and I need to go to open item, but I can't change it on that edit customer screen because it's transactional history? What do? I've put a link there to a video which will demonstrate how you do that. What you do is you go to change, open item balance forward, and you follow the prompts. So it will then convert from either open item to balance forward or from balance forward to open item. In the event that it is an open item client and you cannot match, you have to convert to balance forward, which is basically going to wipe out your open item history. So it's going to match everything from oldest down, and then you're going to have to convert back to open item. What that means is that you will only be able to match The moment you say yes, okay, I've done this conversion, going forward on new transactions. So it's not something that you want to do just willy-nilly. It does have repercussions. You do lose your open item matching ability for all transactions you have processed, and only going forward will you be able to match again. So that is the only way to get rid of that. The other option is to start new company, take on balances. Not the best options, unfortunately it happens. It's why it's really, really important when you are going to do your year end that you make sure that everything is correct, including your matching. Thank you for bringing up that question. When I do next year's list, I will actually make sure that this is one of the things I ask people to check. That's why I love these sessions. Interesting things come up and things I haven't even thought to put on the checklist for year ends. Can I insert banking details onto my invoices? Yes, you can. You can go and look for the video on YouTube called How Do I Use Forms Designer, or How Do I Insert Text? That is there. Guys, I'm not going to show you how to do that. That is a webinar all on its own. It takes me about an hour to teach you how to use Forms Designer. Absolutely, you will get that recording tomorrow, guys. So that should come through latest 11 o'clock, but that recording should go through. So guys, very quickly, I'm going to show you. So I've spoken about Sage City, I've spoken about the KB, and I've spoken about YouTube. I'm actually just going to quickly go into YouTube because I know that often I'll send certain things going, hey, here's a step-by-step video. I love the videos. I find that they help me a lot more than guides. But, you know, I like to use both at times. So I'll read the guide and I'll watch the video. We do have informative YouTube videos as well as informative guides. So guys, our guides are on sagekb.com. That's what you would enter in the address. It will open up to our knowledge base. In our knowledge base, I then advise that you please click on the Sage 50 Cloud Pastel icon. It's a little 50 in a little bubble. Now, guys, this is for Sage Pastel Accounting. Whether you are running version 12, 14, 17, 18, or Sage 50 Cloud, the steps here are for all of those versions. If it's not, we will tell you. We will say, please note that if you're running version 12 or below, these steps will not work. Or if you're running version 18 and below, these steps will not work. And then normally there will be another guide that will state that. For example, guys, if you are on version 11 and you want to be on version 12, you need to convert your data. But if you are on 12 and above, to get to 19, you just open the data and it runs that conversion automatically. So go into this section. The reason being is on the other screen, if you just search, it's going to search all products. And then here you can search, for example, balance forward conversion. Now, guys, this will then tell you how to convert from open item to balance forward and vice versa. And this will give you step-by-step guides on how to run that wizard. So this will show you screen by screen what you need to do, how you need to do it. Then we also have Sage City. Sage City is a really awesome tool that you can use. It's a community that you can all choose to be part of. sagecity.com, you go into Africa and Middle East. You're then going to select Sage 50. And then, guys, when you're in Sage 50, here you can come in and you can actually ask us questions. If you are going to start a post, obviously, please join first. So if you don't have an account, in my case, I do, you would then sign up. Once you've signed up, please sign up for notifications. And then over here, please put your questions in general discussion. If you put it in news, I will move it, not for any other reason, just so that everything's in the right place. And then you can ask us question or even start a discussion. So guys, maybe you learned something really cool from the session and you want to share with the community. Hey guys, attended a really cool webinar and did you know you can do 1, 2, 3? That's a discussion and you share it with the community. You can also ask a question. Now guys, something to bear in mind with this though, is this is not an immediate, this does not take the place of support. while yes, we will respond to you, we will only respond to you if no one else in the community responds to you within 24 to 48 hours. So if you are sitting and you've got an error code 20 and you need to run reports in an hour, Sage City probably isn't the best place for you to come and put a question on, guys, how do I resolve error code 20, and then expect an immediate response from someone. You can definitely come here and search and go, hey, what responses are there for error code 20? Okay, I see that there are a couple of responses. Let me go in, let me have a look. Maybe this will help me to resolve that. So you can absolutely come here and check the forums. But if you're getting a response and nothing's worked, we are only going to respond in 24 hours. That does not mean someone in the community may not respond to you quickly. And guys, just bear that in mind. If you're part of this community, you see a question and you know the answer, feel free to reply. This isn't actually a support only, oh, only Sage can reply to this person. You're absolutely welcome to be like, hey, Mr. Whoever, hey, Jeff, actually the way that you resolve not being able to match old items is you watch this video and you convert to balance forward from open item to balance forward and back to open item. Have a great day. Totally okay for you to reply. Really cool community to be part of. And guys, in this community, what we do is we do give you obviously really important information. So I'll often post things in news and alerts. Things like the news flash. Maybe you didn't get the news flash and you really wanted to see the news flash and that didn't come up. I am going to put May up today. It went out on Monday. You can come in and you can see that. So I think April should be around here somewhere. Sorry, I'm going to put June up. So for example, you missed May. You can come in and have a look at May. I'm going to put June up today. Or maybe you actually want to see what the top 10 demand drivers are. Why are people phoning in? What's happening? There are solutions and those link to videos as well as what people are commonly calling in for. So we'll give you the KB articles as well as the videos you can watch. So just some interesting information there. Nice place to actually be and a really great community to be part of. And then guys, we've got YouTube. So in YouTube, you can look for Sage Customer Support and Training. And when you go into Sage Customer Support and Training, you will see the orange background with the white logo. You're then going to go to the playlist. So guys, what you're looking for is you're looking for Africa and Middle East. And then I strongly advise that you just browse through until you find the Sage 50 Cloud. So once you've found that, and it depends on where the videos are, you're then going to go to View Full Playlist. Please don't just click on the playlist. Otherwise, what's going to happen is it's going to play in a random order, and you may not want to watch like 50 different videos that we've uploaded. Some of them are over an hour long. So what you may want to do is you may just want to come through and go, okay, what is the most recent, or I'm looking for something very specific, and you can come have a look at what's here. Now, guys, generally the videos that we create are based on the top 10 FAQs and core demand drivers. If those are made, we then go down the list. So eventually we want to have videos on everything, but you can come through, have a look here, and then obviously watch those videos. Otherwise, guys, hopefully we've answered all of your questions. Again, I'd really like to thank Nancy for a wonderful session. If there are any questions that I have not answered, guys, please use the question icon now. It is on the right-hand side of your screen, little question mark and a speech bubble, and I'll be happy to answer those questions. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for joining us. In 2 weeks, we will do supplier reporting, and I will be running that session, so please join me for that. Otherwise, guys, I do hope that you have a fantastic day further, and those of you that don't have any further questions, you're welcome to log out. Thank you so much. Then, guys, if you do actually look in the chat, you can see that Nancy has actually put up the direct link to the to the playlist. On top of that, guys, if you have any questions about these sessions, so if there's a recording that you would like to have access to, or if you have a question about the certificates, you're welcome to email me, joanne.barnard@sage.com. Alternatively, if you have questions that support need to answer, so for example, maybe you do have an aging issue that would still go through support, you just need to email them supportsa@sage.com. If you do email me support-related queries, I don't always get to them immediately based on the other work that I have to do, and my email isn't monitored the same way that support is, and I don't want you guys to have to wait 3 or 4 days for me to answer you. So in that instance, I might then forward that query through to support if you don't send it through to support SA. But guys, only stuff like, for example, hey Joe, I need a recording, or I didn't get my certificate, I can then advise you were definitely part of the session, or here's the recording. Other than that, guys, hopefully I've answered all questions. I do hope that you all have a fantastic day. I will stay around for a couple of minutes in case there are any other questions. But guys, thanks again so much for joining me. I'm going to stop the recording now, and you're welcome to log out. Thanks so much.